Hey everybody, Nick here, and today we're gonna take this little guy apart right here. This is the Boker Nano. Weird little knife. Alrighty, that's popped off. A little bit of blue thread locker. I don't know if that's from Boca or Bird. Oh, by the way, I just realized I filmed the last disassembly without acknowledging my viewer, which is ugly. And that's not something I hate to do. That is something I hate to do, but I want to acknowledge at the very least this viewer. This is Frankie and the Bird sent this guy along, and I appreciate that. It feels like these days we have just a constant stream of packages going back and forth. They loan me something, I loan them something. It just works out. Okay, come on, little guy, pop loose. Ah, come on, you freaking screw. All right, you win this round. Sometimes it's just not worth a battle, you know? All right, that's loose. And this is loose. All right, whatever, you stay. I don't care. Okay, this is interesting. So this is an internal liner. I had kind of been under the impression that this, at first glance, was a G10 only on one side, but no, this is full on. There is a liner here. This liner appears to be on there pretty good, mind you, but hopefully it's not like peened open. None of these pivots and whatnot, because that could be frustrating. All right, now I'm going to use a weird little part of my disassembly kit, which is this little chunk of leather here. This little chunk of leather is, it's got enough stiffness to it that I can get in there and do some torquing and pop things around, but it's not ever freaking going to scratch anything. So that's always nice. So these back parts are popped loose now. But I just need to get the front parts loose. Come on. Wow, this is just not wanting to go anywhere. Might be stuck down with a little bit of Loctite or something. I am not so impressed with it, whatever that is. Or it might just be a Boker. That is the other option here. Boker is just a weird company. Really? Is this not going to come off? Is this not going to come off for me? Are you going to fight me like that? Okay, I'm going to try another tack here. I'm going to use a very small Torx bit. Mind you, I'm going very small here. A pretty disposable bit. So this will clear the threads entirely, and then I'm going to just try and push the pivot out through the other side here. And see if that'll allow me to... No, that's not doing either. You know what, guys? I'm kind of suspecting that this liner isn't coming off. Because it's off here, but this spot right here isn't going anywhere. This side is not tooled, so I can't back it out in that way. It's D-shaped, so I can't rotate the liner around. I just don't know. I always say, you know what, guys, etc. on the channel, but of course I do know that I have female viewers, and I want to acknowledge anybody who watches the channel, no matter what gender they feel like they want to express. Of course, I see the little statistics, and it's something like 99.98% male or something like that. Let's be real here, knives in EDC are a male-dominated field. Hence all the people who think pink knives are the way to win a woman's heart. Not exactly the best approach. All right, guys, I'm done here. I I bet that there's a way I could get to this pivot on the inside there, but I don't think that there is. So instead, we're going to just do a sort of a non-destructive disassembly on this guy. You know, oh man. This guy's a little bit dirty up inside here, but there's not a whole lot to this knife. I mean, we can kind of see everything that's involved in this knife pretty straightforwardly, just looking through the inside of it. There's a liner here, there's a lock bar. Liners are painted, which is kind of a nice thing because it helps to resist corrosion. Can clean out this little portion of the blade. You want to make sure you get to this little portion of a blade when you're doing something like that, because that's what hits the stop pin. And that's a common place for gunk to build up. And indeed, if too much gunk builds up there, well, you're going to have a bad time because the knife isn't going to want to lock closed. I'm actually going to go ahead and pour a little bit of booze through this pivot area. It's going to drip right out, but with it is going to come, ideally, a variety of contaminants. Because things are loosened up a little bit here relative to the norm. Let's see if that actually helped me. Because it feels like I've got a little bit more play now. Try that a little more. Whoa there, that was definitely overkill. Yeah, that's not freaking coming. Okay. Well, at the very, very least, that's the other advantage, by the way, to using rubbing alcohol or something like that, is that this will evaporate pretty nicely. So I'm not worried so much about water getting inside the pivot and whatnot. One thing I'm going to try and show you here, I don't know if I've got the light to do it. Here, I'll use a little light on the subject here. Is that inside there we do have Teflon washers. I mean, you know my feelings about Teflon washers rather well by this point. But, you know, in this case, it's okay. It means that they're not going to be terribly, we're not going to have problems, for instance, with not getting the lubrication all the way up in there. I mean, Teflon runs okay, completely dry. Everything we're doing here is gravy. I'm going to take a little bit of canned air. This is just a, you know, boring Costco canned air. If you've got an air compressor, that is absolutely the better approach to do this, but I don't have an air compressor here, which is an absence I feel on a regular basis. Just doesn't make sense to have up inside the house here. So I buy my air in cans, kind of like the movie Spaceballs. Okay. Is there anything else I can do for this little knife? There is not. I'm going to wipe down the areas I can wipe down. Feel like I'm a little discombobulated this morning. Sorry, it's a little early, but that's okay. Disassembling a Boker can be a discombobulating experience. All right, so while the pivot is still loose, I mean, I've got some looseness in there with the liner. I'm going to go ahead and try and apply a little bit of oil inside there. And because I can't get all the way in, I am going to, oh, what the heck. I'm going to use a little bit of the thinner weight nano oil. This is the 5-weight CLP oil. The reason I'm going there is that, here we go. This stuff tends to penetrate a little bit better. It goes capillary action on things. And so it'll flow into areas where the thick stuff would never flow, etc. And that should, there we go. Once I go this back and forth a few times, it should pretty evenly distribute itself on the, that's much better. Wow. Freaking needs a lock bar, or detent ball ramp like yesterday. Oh, man. But, you know, nonetheless, yeah, that's a lot smoother now, even as it is. Okay. There we go. Let's go on ahead and put this little guy back together here. Helpfully, all of my screws stayed in the scale. I am going to put a little more Loctite on them because they're kind of stuck in this position, though I'm going to go ahead and do it using an oiler. This is just a little watch spring bar tool. And so I will do this instead, where instead of applying it to the screw, I will just apply it directly to the threads that I want the thread lock on. Problem solved. Case freaking closed. There we go. Beautiful thing. So those screws should go back in happily. Let's make them do such. It's always frustrating to me when I can't really get in there and do the deep clean. Only had that happen a couple of times. I suspect there's some kind of a production failure mode wherein that pivot gets peened a little bit out. Maybe it's over tightened or something like that at some point. I'm not enough of an engineer to know it, but whatever it is, it's ugly. I'd really rather it never be the case again in my life, but that's okay. Frankly, if that's the biggest problem I have to deal with today, I feel like I'm going to be having a pretty good day. Ah, here it is. Oh, that's my T6. I need my T8 driver. Oh, T8 driver. Wherefore art thou, T8 driver? There it is. It was underneath me. That's okay. Using a good screwdriver is never beneath me. Okay. That wasn't that funny. So I'm going to make sure and tighten this guy down a little bit. We can see that the pivot is still... Now we can see that the pivot is still kind of a little bit proud relative to the liner. Tightening this pivot down is going to pull that back in there. Then I'm going to back it off just slightly more so that way we have an acceptable action. It's not acceptable. Let's try again, shall we? Loosen it up a little bit more. No blade play. This needs a detent ramp so badly. It's got that terrible stop. But again, it's a $50 knife that's not a whole lot of anything. Boker should have probably done that. But anyways, the Nano here is in better shape than when we started, absolutely. But it's, that was frustrating. But that's life. Like I said, if this is my biggest problem today, I'm a happy man. So there you go. That's your disassembly on your Boker Nano. Put everything back into my little holder here. I hope this has been interesting to you. I hope that yours takes apart a little bit more readily than that guy did. And mostly, though, I hope that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.